Coming to Ceph Day. I really appreciate it. I'm Patrick McGarry. I'm the community monkey here at Ceph. I take care of care and feeding for the people that actually do all the hard work. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. If it gets any more technical than kind of scratching the surface, I will probably just plug you in with someone who can actually answer real questions. Those of you that don't know my history, I spent 6 years at Slashdot as an editor and then eventually running the site there. After that, I kind of went to Alcatel-Lucent and tried to bring them the open source gospel and decided I was much more happy in an open source company, so I went to Inktank right at the beginning there and came to Red Hat with the acquisition. So that's who I am and where we've been. So now we're going to talk about what's going on in the Ceph community. There is a ton of really cool stuff going on in the Ceph community right now. The nice part about Ceph is that Sage, from the very, very beginning, more than 10 years ago now, really set Ceph up as a great community first and a great open source project before we ever started even thinking about anything commercial. So he's got a great kind of legacy. One of the things I told him when I very first started at Inktank was, this is wonderful. You did all of the right things for community, which I have never seen before. And now all I have to do is not screw it up. So far we have not screwed it up for the last couple of years, and it's been good. But here we are at Ceph Days. We're definitely kind of turning up the heat on Ceph Days. This year, I think we had 10 Ceph Day events. Next year, we're gonna shoot for just as many plus a few more hackathons. So that'll be good. We are beginning our 2016 planning. We don't have anything solidified for 2016 yet. So if you know of a venue, you want us to come back here, back to Tokyo, China. Was another one this year that was really good. So I think we're going to be spending more time on this side of the planet this year than we did last year. So that'll be exciting for us. The Ceph Hackathon, I mentioned hackathons. We had our very first Ceph Hackathon. Ceph is 10 years old, as I mentioned, and this year was our very first hackathon. So that was kind of exciting. Intel hosted us in their Hillsboro, Oregon facility. We had about 20 people, depending on the day. Some came in late and some left early. But we had some amazing performance results that were really cranked out of there. That was excellent. There was one change that was made during the hackathon that I think resulted in like 6x back-end performance or something. So it was a big deal. We had some of the core engineers there with some of our really heavy community participants. That was exciting. So we're going to do that again this year. We're looking at least probably 2, maybe 3 hackathons this year. I think the current one that we're kicking around is probably going to be a little bit before OpenStack Dallas. So if you plan on going to OpenStack, maybe think about showing up a little early and come play with us at the hackathon. Metrics. This is another cool piece of our community. It's been around for a little while. Those of you that are familiar with the OpenStack dashboard, these are the same guys. It's a company called Liturgia. They're a really small company, data services type company that built OpenStack dashboard or open source dashboards for open source companies, and they do a really good job. So if you ever have any curiosity of what's going on in the Ceph world, this is a good place to start. The nice part is right now we are in production or in the process of building a new piece to our metrics dashboard. There's been a lot of work in the community to talk about performance results, performance tuning, and some of the hardware configurations that go around with that. And that's going to be something we're going to be adding to our metrics dashboard. So in the future, those people that are interested in, hey, let's figure out what we need to do to build a Ceph cluster for a particular use case. Hopefully you'll be able to go to metrics.ceph. Check out some of the proof of concept builds, the commercial builds, and things like that, and see what people are doing and what kind of performance they're getting out of it. So do I want an all-flash? Do I want a mix of SAS and Flash? How do I want to set it up to get performance for what it is I'm doing? Am I doing cold storage? Am I doing SAN/NAS replacement? Am I doing OpenStack storage? Hopefully we'll have some good resources that'll be able to get you well on your way. The user committee. Those of you that have been around for a while have probably seen the user committee. This was a completely grassroots movement Not started by Ink Tank, not started by Red Hat. This was our users self-organizing, saying, we want some infrastructure in the community to help us do things like meetups, shipping swag, stuff like that. And now, the most recent person that is elected as the chair of the user committee, Vito Den Hollander, he's been a longtime community member. He's from 42 on. He has actually started building a mirror network for Ceph. The first two mirrors, the first one appeared as eu.ceph.com. That was actually in Vito's data center. And now we have an au.ceph.com mirror where you can get all of the packages and everything. It'll be local, and you don't have to wait for transit times or anything like that across the ocean. So good news. More will be coming soon. We're actually going to build out a real mirror network. Now it's just kind of an ad hoc rsync thing that lives as some crazy zombie in the internet somewhere. But we're building a real network now that will be able to allow people to sync down to their own hardware somewhere, their own data center, and then volunteer and say, I have a Ceph mirror. So that'll be exciting. Look for that in the near future. The user committee does a few other things. They do some of the release notes work to make sure that people are getting credit. We look at who are the top committers, who are the top companies doing commits, and things like that. So if you have any interest, there's a mailing list. Always hop on there and shout at folks and see what's going on. Google Summer of Code. This was our second year, Google Summer of Code. Our first year we had 2 slots, which was exciting. We had some good stuff. We had a Wireshark plugin and a really good kind of exploration of the reliability model that came out of that. This year's Google Summer of Code just wrapped up. I think we were given 6 slots. Yeah, 6 slots, and we used 4 of them. So definitely, if you know students that want to get paid over the summer for hacking on Ceph, send them our way this next year. We've already started kind of ramping up for Google Summer of Code 2016. And we didn't have enough bodies that had, we had 10 or 12 different submissions, but it's a matter of quality at that point. You need to have somebody who's actually going to be dedicated and make it through to the end. So if you know dedicated students that want to get paid for coding for the summer, rather than going and flipping burgers or something less exciting, definitely send them our way. We also participated in the Outreachy program, which is very similar to Google Summer of Code. It's run through the GNOME guys, and we only had 1 student there, but it worked out really well. They helped us migrate our wiki. Those of you that knew our wiki before knew it was pretty on the front, but less than usable on the back. So now we traded. It's not as pretty, but it actually gets the job done. So that's much better for us. We've never been about pretty and polished. It's always been about what works. I guess that's what you get when you deal with infrastructure guys. The CentOS storage stake. Do we have any CentOS users here? Anybody using Ceph on CentOS? Awesome. So you guys will be excited about this then. So if you've been following the CentOS world, you know that there's the new special interest groups, new-ish. You've got like the server SIG, the vert SIG, a few other things. But the Gluster guys and the Ceph guys, we got together and we started the storage SIG. Now there's another 4 or 5 people that are playing. For those of you that don't know, it's basically a collection of packages that you put into a CentOS repo that makes it easy to create something, whether it's a virtualization box or, in this case, a storage node. We actually just had one of the guys working at one of the CERN Atlas sites in Chicago. His name's Lincoln Bryant. He just volunteered to be the package maintainer for the CentOS storage SIG. So that'll make the CentOS world a lot better for Ceph, I think, in the near future. We'll get a little bit more polish on those packages and make it easier to use. But we're definitely, KB and I have been talking a lot about how can we make the CentOS experience for Ceph users more seamless and more polished anyway. So he's going to help us do the polish since we obviously are not polished people. So yeah, look for that in the near future. If you want to get involved, I'm sure there's always places for many hands to make light work. Stop by the mailing list. CentOS has a SIG mailing list. I think the storage guys meet once every 2 weeks just to talk about what's going on. Governance, it's here. I had to have a whole slide just for my confetti cannon. Those of you that have been following along with the Ceph governance stuff know that I have been fighting for open project governance for the better part of 2 years. when we were at Ink Tank, it was all about, okay, let's get this governance done, let's get it out there. Then it was, whoa, hold on, we need to go out for some funding to pay the bills and make sure people can keep working on Ceph. So we slowed down there. We restarted it up again, and then the acquisition happened, so then it got put on hold. We tried again, and Red Hat said, whoa, you need to think about this and redo it so that it fits in the Red Hat kind of sphere of influence. And so now we've done it. We have a soft launch that just happened at OpenStack Tokyo, which I'm really excited about. We have 10 board members as kind of charter board members, myself and Sage, obviously Sage as the project lead. Then we have 2 kind of non-commercial members, was Vito from the user committee, and Dan Vanderster from CERN, who's going to represent academic interests. Those of you that don't know Ceph's history, Ceph was originally started as a part of a Trilabs grant, so it was the Department of Energy, DOE guys. So it was the Lawrence Livermore, Sandia, and I always forget the third one. But it was basically research and academia said to Sage, like, look, let's make a better luster. So the funny part is obviously that CephFS has been the only piece of Ceph that hasn't been quote-unquote production ready, although Sage did announce that CephFS should be landing 2016, so we're really excited about that. Yeah, it'll be nice to have CephFS. We've been waiting a long time for that. But the academic guys have been using CephFS regardless, and they've been very involved in kind of hacking their own uses of Ceph. So we figured that it would be a good idea for the academic guys to have representation on the board because they do kind of different things with it. And then we've got 6 people from different commercial interests that are helping to kick the board off and make sure that the project's headed in the right direction and everybody's talking to each other. And if you know any of these folks on this list, you'll know that everybody here on that sheet right there is very technical, very involved with Ceph, except me. I'm just the guy who's going to grease the wheels. We've got SanDisk, and then we've got Canonical and SUSE, which was a big win for us. We want to make sure that kind of across the Linux ecosystem, Ceph is working well and transparently for everyone, not just for RHEL users. We got Seth Mason from Cisco, and then Fujitsu and Intel are also playing in our sandbox and have been for a long time. Intel actually donated a huge pile of hardware that will be coming available to the community very soon. It's already available in our Sandia lab. For those of you that want to play with it, you just need VPN access right now. Once we get the community lab up in our Raleigh data center, anybody from the community can play with it. Although the upside is, if you're interested in building things with Ceph and then testing them, our tautology framework, which is our testing framework, now works with any OpenStack endpoint. So when you submit a fix with a test, you can point it at like an OVH cloud in Europe, or Dream Compute from the DreamHost guys, and say, run my tests over there. Then you don't have to wait in queue with everyone else. So a lot of exciting things coming from the governance world. Definitely been a long time coming. Ceph Tech Talks. Those of you that have been around for a while probably have seen our Ceph Tech Talks. It's a monthly talk that we do some deep dive exploration of some technical Ceph-related topic. These can be anything from core things like Rados. I think the Rados was our first Ceph Tech Talk. Sam Just, who's our CTL component technical lead for Rados, came in and did a deep dive, and this is how it works, this is where we're headed, that kind of thing. Josh Durgan did an RBD. He's the CTL for RBD. So we've had a lot of the core guys give their spiel, but we've also had some people from the community. Florian Haas came in and did a talk about what are placement groups and how do they work. It's basically an hour online. You come in, you watch, you can ask questions, and if you aren't able to get there, we record it and put it up on YouTube. So it's on the YouTube channel. So definitely go check that out if you haven't yet. It's a great deep dive examination of stuff that's Ceph related. And if you have something that you want to share with the community, maybe you've been doing some sort of integration, or you've been building a new interface to Liberatos or something, it's always nice to get community members to come talk about that. So, yeah.
How do we get on the schedule for the tech talk?
Email me. Just poke me in the eye and I'll make it happen. That'll be good. Ceph Developer Summit. It used to be a quarterly thing. We used to release a new stable build of Ceph every quarter. People told us to slow down. They didn't want us to move quite as fast. It was hard for them to keep upgrading with us. So I think we're down to about 3 stable releases a year. Every time we get ready to do a stable release, though, we have a Ceph Developer Summit. Again, this is online. One of the things early on in the Ceph timetable that we decided is we wanted to make sure that there were no water cooler discussions for Ceph. Every engineer, whether he was working at Inktank and now Red Hat or outside of that, we wanted to make sure that it was an equal footing. So on our Ceph Developer Summits, you don't have a bunch of internal guys around a conference table with one camera or something. Every engineer has to have their own laptop, their own camera, and participate as an individual. It's something that we felt very strongly about for a long time, is that we like to make sure that Ceph is very easy to participate in, despite the fact that it is a deeply technical topic. People that actually want to get involved should be able to do so relatively easily. So every time we get ready to do a stable release, we start talking about what's coming next. So obviously the most recent summit was the one talking about what's coming in Joule, which will hit probably February, March of next year. So once we get ready to release Joule, obviously we will be talking about the K release. Any Ceph Developer Summit has all of its content recorded. So you've got the blueprints. Those of you that are not familiar with how Ceph works, every time we get ready to do these Ceph Developer Summits, anyone who has a feature or any kind of major performance work or anything that's going into Ceph, we ask them to fill out just a really short blueprint. This is what I'm doing, this is who I am, and this is what I need. Every one of those blueprints gets about a half-hour session with Sage and the rest of the community to say what it is they're about. Sage can tell them, all right, you got to think about these other things that are coming. They talk about kind of implementation details, how it's going to work out, and then obviously they have a plan to go forward from there. So all of these sessions are about 30 minutes long. We run 2 days. We usually have a US and Europe friendly, and then a US and APAC friendly, although it's less East Coast friendly. I usually end up staying up till about 4 a.m. So it's a really good thing. And even if you're not going to be doing development, if you're going to be kind of deeply involved with Ceph in any way, shape, or form, it's always good to kind of fly on the wall this stuff and check it out and see what's going on in the Ceph world. As I mentioned, if you missed it, though, it's all on YouTube. The Ceph YouTube channel is actually a pretty good place to find just about anything that's going on recently with Ceph, including Ceph Days. Ceph.com. If you were watching the mailing list this year, you noticed that we had an intrusion into Ceph.com. Unfortunately, part of being a startup also means that you don't necessarily have all the resources to do secure infrastructure. You have idiots like me running Ceph.com who are not security minded. Although, thankfully, it was not my fault. It was actually a problem with WordPress. Somebody got in. We fixed that, cleaned up what they did, although we missed a backdoor that they left for themselves. So they actually had Ceph.com access for a long time. So rather than trying to fix it, patch it, Band-Aid it, we burned it to the ground and made a new Ceph.com. The good news is, with the new Ceph.com, we have a lot of new tools and things that are going to be put into the new infrastructure, and Red Hat is running it for us and making sure that it is much more secure and friendly. So definitely keep an eye out for the Ceph.com redesign that's coming. I've been working with a few folks and designers and whatnot to get new Ceph.com so that it looks a little bit better than the best that 1995 had to offer. So stay tuned for the lists. We'll obviously be involving our community in the redesign. so that you can weigh in. Now, for the technical stuff, obviously I said I wasn't technical, but there's a lot of really cool, exciting things about Ceph that are technical and are very exciting that a lot of people don't know about. I always like to kind of throw them out there in case anyone gets really excited. Liberados. Most people know that Ceph does object, block, and file. We have, obviously the gateway, the block device, and CephFS. But what a lot of people don't know is we have a native library that talks directly to the object store that doesn't have to go through those three kind of interfaces. And you get a lot of really cool stuff for free with this Liberados access. There's bindings for most any language you can think of. C, C++, Java, Python, PHP, even Erlang and Haskell, which I'm not sure why those came about, but somebody got really excited and did those. So, like I said, it's a direct data path to your storage nodes. You don't have to go through an interface of any kind. And it exposes some really cool benefits underneath. Obviously, it gives you better performance. But it exposes things like mutable objects and a really cool API that you can do some fun stuff with. It's the same interface that any of our the object, block, and file interfaces that are external to Ceph. We use Liberados, so it's what we do. CephFS, as I mentioned, landing next year, very exciting. We've done a lot of hard work on CephFS. We've actually been dogfooding it, using it for all of our QA workloads and everything internally. So it's come a long way since then. We also had one very enterprising individual from Intel China this past year who at one point had a lot of fixes that he wanted to make. And I think over the course of 3 months, he submitted something like 700 or 800 patches. So it has come a long way. Thanks to a small group of people and a much larger group of folks that are hammering on the work that they've done. I threw a few stats in here to look at, but if you want to know what's really going on, obviously check out metrics.ceph. Object classes. This is probably one of the most underutilized pieces of Ceph, and I'm not sure if it's just that people haven't figured out what the best way to use it is, or if people just don't know about it. But the Ceph infrastructure actually has a way for you to build in object classes to your storage cluster. So this allows you to execute code directly on the storage nodes themselves. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with this. The easiest example that I give is think of yourself, maybe you're a big image store like Flickr. Flickr actually announced they have what will be the largest Ceph cluster soon. So if you're a large image store, you have people that are dumping images on, and you want to thumbnail them. Now you can either make the thumbnail when you store it and store both right off the bat. But if you don't necessarily want your users to have to do that, rather than taking it off of the storage node, making a thumbnail and pushing them both back, now you can just have your storage cluster recognize, hey, this thing's of type image. I'm going to take this image type and I'm going to make a thumbnail right here on the storage node and store it in the cluster without having to hit your network. So pretty exciting. I've seen some people do things like log post-processing, cleanup, transcoding. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you could feasibly do with this. I am excited for the day that somebody builds the better Hadoop with Ceph object classes. So I'm excited to see what people can do with this. I think there have been a couple of Ceph Developer Summit talks, discussions, people that are trying to extend these object classes into new and better things. So definitely check out those videos if you're interested. But this is ripe for exploration and some very cool stuff. So. We've seen some stuff from a couple of different companies where they want to play with this. I just think that it's a longer path than something that they wanted to do right away. People are playing with it at this point, but it hasn't gotten past that, is basically what it comes to. Deployment orchestration. I usually get a lot of questions about how can I deploy Ceph, how can I install it, what can I do? We actually play with pretty much all of the deployment and orchestration frameworks. Those of you that pay attention to the Business Wire news and things like that, you'll see that Red Hat just acquired Ansible. this year. So obviously, I think the Ceph and Ansible relationship was always quite good, but now hopefully it will be even better. But we also play with all the other major players, the Chef and Puppet, the big old school guys that have been around for a long time, the Ansibles and the Salt, which are kind of the new up-and-comers. We also play with like Juju and even, what's Dell's, Crowbar. And there are a few others in there that also we play with. But there are plenty of different ways to get Ceph on your infrastructure, whether it's virtualized or otherwise. Speaking of virtualized, we also do a lot of stuff with Docker. I know there are half a dozen folks out there that are doing either Ceph under Docker or Ceph on Docker. So we're on there both ways. Obviously, containers are a big point of excitement for a lot of people, and Ceph is no different. We definitely excited about what that means for especially our build and test infrastructure. We're looking at ways to use that. Testing. As I mentioned, we have a test cluster right now that's publicly available-ish. You have to get access with the VPN, but if you do any amount of Ceph work and you want some place to test it, we'll usually throw the keys out to whoever needs it. We also have an internal lab, so you won't have to share most of these resources with Red Hatters. It's mostly just community guys. That's where the Intel performance cluster lives. We've got a bunch of old Dell machines and some stuff left over from our DreamHost days there as well. But obviously, this is all going to be moving over to our community lab. We were almost there. Red Hat gave us about $400,000 worth of hardware and said, here you go, make a Ceph cluster, make it available to the community. This is exciting, let's go to town. They gave us these C micro boxes that looked good on paper. Unfortunately, when we threw Ceph at them, they fell over. So we had to kind of flush that down the toilet and start over. We're getting close, though, now to being able to flip the switch again. We will most likely be building it as an OpenStack infrastructure so that we can obviously use the built-in Tautology OpenStack endpoint. If you'd like to know more about that, check out that URL. Loic Deckery is the guy who built it. He's been a Ceph guy for a long time, finally got hired by Red Hat, and he wrote the OpenStack integration for Tautology and has been sharing that. He also did a talk at OpenStack Tokyo. So definitely check that out. I think that's pretty much all for me.